Okay, dear students, very good morning to all of you. Today the idea is to cover income from other sources. So we started off in the earlier session, income from other sources being the residuary head of income. Out of the 5 heads of income, this is the residuary head of income, where any income which doesn't fall under the earlier 4 heads of income will squarely fall under income from other sources. I briefly explained to you in the last session about the basis of charge under section 56, where 11 types of income are specifically covered under the income from other sources. However, there are also few more incomes which I gave examples, which you may recollect. All these incomes are basically chargeable to tax under the head income from other sources. Now I'll take up, we briefly discuss about relevance of method of accounting for the purposes of 2 heads of income, income from business or profession and income from other sources, where accrual basis or cash basis or accrual method or cash method, they are relevant actually for the purpose of determination of income for a previous year. Now I am coming to an important part under this particular lesson. Taxability of dividend. Now dividend, you all know a general meaning of the term dividend. Dividend is basically a share of profit given to shareholders by the company, but there are different types of dividend. Dividend in general meaning you are all very much aware, and more importantly it is under the Companies Act, where there is something which we are familiar about, the term called dividend. Now under the Income Tax Act, there is an important section, section 2 subsection 22, which defines dividend, and under this section we are going to understand what are the types of payment when a company makes. It is covered under the definition of a dividend. One is any distribution entailing release of company's assets is a dividend. Carefully understand this definition under section 222 subsection A, that is clause A you can call. Any distribution entailing the release of company's assets. So if a company's assets like buildings or land are released, and out of that money realized it's paid to shareholders, it's a dividend. Secondly, B, 222B, any distribution of debentures, debenture stock, deposit certificates and bonus to preference shareholders. So if a company is going to distribute in the form of debentures or debenture stock or deposit certificates and bonus to preference shareholders, that is also coming under the definition of a dividend. Thirdly, distribution on liquidation of a company. When a company gets liquidated, if a company is going to distribute money to shareholders, it is still called a dividend for the purpose of income tax. Okay, may not be for the purpose of Companies Act, but for the purpose of Income Tax Act, this is also a dividend. Then very importantly, distribution on reduction of capital. If company is going to distribute any assets or money to shareholders on reduction of capital, it comes under the meaning of dividend for income tax purposes. And lastly, very important, 222E, this is called deemed dividend, and this is a very popular section where there are a lot of references drawn at different other points under the Income Tax Act, section 222 subsection E, where we call it as a deemed dividend. Any payment by way of a loan or advance by a closely held company to a shareholder holding substantial interest, provided the loan should not have been made in the ordinary course of business and the money lending should not be substantial part of the company's business. So very important definition, section 222 subsection E, which is referred to as the deemed dividend. If a company is going to give any loan or advance, that is a closely held company giving to a shareholder. What is a closely held company? A company where public holding is not there, only it's a private holding or a specific group of people are holding the shares, and actually the payment is made by way of loan or by way of any other advance by a closely held company to a shareholder holding substantial interest. Substantial interest is here they are referring to more than 10% holding in that company, and the loan is not to be given in the normal course of business. Normally a company may have its own business like a banking company or a finance company. They may declare, they may give loan or advances in the normal course of business. Not those companies. Those companies can still give loan and all that, but other than those companies which are giving, this is basically a diversion. A company has got money or asset and it is want to give it to shareholders, and so it is squarely falling in the definition of a dividend and becomes taxable in the hands of the recipient. Dividend, very importantly, there are 2 types of dividend. One is a dividend from a domestic company, that is an Indian company, and a dividend from a foreign company. So normally dividend from a foreign company is always taxable in the hands of the assessee, whereas with respect to dividend with respect to an Indian company, there is a new section. I'll touch upon that, 115 BBDA. Very important, make a note of this section, 115 BBDA. There is a new section introduced very recently, where under the Income Tax Act, under the section 115 BBDA, any dividend received, see there is a section 10 subsection 34, you may recollect that under the exemption topic we covered that any dividend received from Indian company is normally exempt from tax, however is subject to conditions. So 115 BBDA provides that any dividend received from a domestic company up to rupees 10 lakh is exempt from tax. Anything above 10 lakh is chargeable to tax. So if for example I am actually having shares of a company, I receive 12 lakh rupees as dividend from that company and 10 lakh is exempted for me and the balance 2 lakhs is taxable under 115 BBDA. Okay, clear? Now the section what I referred to earlier, section 2 subsection 22, and there are 5 clauses you can call A, B, C, D, E. Section 222E is what we normally call as a deemed dividend, because here it's a deeming provision. Here under the Income Tax Act, it deems that any such payment by way of a loan or advance is treated as a dividend, though technically you can't call it as a dividend, but it is treated as a dividend. Consequently, you need to know very clearly this is a deeming provision and not an actual dividend, but it is taxable in the hands of the recipient. So in this 4 to 5 cases, whenever a company is going to give something to the shareholder, it is coming under the definition of a dividend and hence it is taxable in the hands of the recipient. Now coming to non-domestic company, I told you about it is taxable in the hands of the assessee, because we are talking about a foreign company declaring dividend, and always it is taxable. And if it is received in India, because it's an Indian income, or if the shareholder is resident and ordinary resident in India, and again you all know the income tax implication arises on the basis of residential status, and so any income in the form of a dividend received in India is an Indian income and hence it is taxable. And dividend distribution tax, there is a tax called the dividend distribution tax. That is, a company which is distributing dividend, do they have to pay a dividend distribution tax? That is, there is a tax on the dividend distributed by the company. Carefully understand this. There is a tax on the dividend received by the recipient assessee. There is a tax on the dividend distributed by the company which is distributing the dividend. So with respect to foreign companies declaring dividend, it is taxable in the hands of the assessee, but there is no dividend distribution tax. There is no question of dividend distribution tax which arises or which needs to be paid by the foreign company. Secondly, coming to a domestic company not being a deemed dividend under 222E, just now I was referring to that section. So that is normal dividend paid by an Indian company. As a general rule, it is exempted under section 10 subsection 34, but I gave you a reference of a new section 115 BBDA which was introduced very recently from the assessment year 17-18. Very recently, 2 years before assessment year 17-18, they introduced this section where, as I said, anything up to 10 lakh rupees is exempt from tax, anything above 10 lakh rupees is fully taxable. That is the incremental portion above 10 lakh is fully taxable, the balance is taxable rather. Are you able to understand? In this case, the company which is actually declaring a dividend is required to pay a dividend distribution tax under section 115O. So dividend distribution tax has to be paid by the company distributing dividend, and the dividend distribution tax arises under section 115O, and it is applicable even if the shareholder is subject to taxation under 115 BBDA. Very, very important. So when an Indian company is going to declare a dividend, even though the shareholder may be paying tax about 10 lakh rupees of dividend, the company distributing dividend has to pay dividend distribution tax. Now, for other domestic companies, whether giving in the form of deemed dividend, I told you just now 222E in the form of loan or whatever it is to a shareholder, then it is taxable in the hands of the recipient under section 56 because it's a deemed dividend and no dividend distribution tax is payable by the company. So whenever a tax obligation arises under section 222E, it is taxable in the hands of the recipient, but the company need not pay the dividend distribution tax. Then coming to the deemed dividend distribution on, or this is basically for the period up to 31st March 2018. Now there is a change after 31st March. Let me repeat. Deemed dividend position up to 31/3/2018. Deemed dividend position up to 31/3/2018. It is taxable in the hands of recipient, and no dividend distribution tax is payable by the company. Very simple. Then after 31/3, that is from 1/4/18, the position has undergone a change. Now with respect to deemed dividend, it is not taxable in the hands of the recipient by virtue of exemption given under section 10 subsection 34. Even deemed dividend is not taxable under section 10 subsection 34 with effect from 1/4/18 However, the company which distributes this deemed dividend, as we discussed just now, in the form of a loan or advance, is liable to pay dividend distribution tax under section 115O at the rate of 30%. Carefully understand, these are all possible MCQ questions. So under 115O, it is taxable at the rate of 30% plus surcharge if applicable, plus health and education cess if applicable, and the net rate works out to 34.944%. Dividend distribution tax is nothing but a tax on dividend distributed by the company. Are you able to understand? Very, very important summary what I gave you now, and quite an important area, because they definitely will ask you questions on this, and you need to be very much familiar, either in the form of a direct question or in the form of MCQs. They can ask you this. So the assessee, as I told you, coming to section 115 BVDA, the new section which was introduced from assessment year 17-18. It talks about total income of the assessee in the form of a dividend exceeding only 10 lakh rupees, that is up to 10 lakh rupees is not taxable, exceeding 10 lakh rupees by way of dividend, and we are talking about dividend, not deemed dividend, because deemed dividend position I have given you very clearly under section 222E. Dividend means cash dividend what you receive, and exceeding 10 lakh rupees is taxable, and if it is received from a domestic company, the excess is taxable. That is, anything above 10 lakh rupees is taxable in the hands of the recipient, and this is taxable at a special rate of 10%. Now carefully observe, under 115 BBDA, any dividend received above 10 lakh rupees is taxable at a special rate of 10% plus surcharge if applicable, plus health and education cess, and this is the overall taxability of the dividend with respect to domestic companies. These are all recent changes, so naturally whenever there are some recent amendments and changes, the examiner will always be tempted to ask that question in order to ensure that whether you are familiar or not. So in my view, these are all very, very, very important, and you need to be completely thorough with these provisions regarding taxability of dividend. Particularly in this particular lesson on other sources, dividend is a major income head, or rather source of income under this particular head called income from other sources. So that becomes all the more relevant to understand it better. Are you clear? And coming to some other points, normally you all know a dividend is declared by a company at its AGM. So in which year normally, irrespective of the books of accounts you may maintain in the cash basis or accrual basis, normal dividend declared at the AGM is deemed to be income of the previous year in which it is declared. Very important, because for the financial year ended 31/3/20, the company will declare a dividend in June 2020. Then naturally the question arises, when is this dividend taxable? Now cash basis or accrual basis, you are very much aware, it is accrued for the year ended 31/3/20, but the provision says very clearly it will be taxable only in the year in which it is declared in the AGM. So it is declared in the previous year 2021. So it is taxable as an income for the previous year 2021. Coming to deemed dividend, the normal dividend under section 222, what we discussed just now, notional dividend rather, under section 2 subsection 22, is treated as income of the previous year in which it is distributed or paid. So section 222 we discuss about A, B, C, D, E. All this sort of distribution of dividend will be taxed in the year in which it is actually distributed or paid, and not on accrual or cash basis or anything else doesn't apply here. Actual payment in whichever year it happens, it is taxable in that year. Now coming to interim dividend, again we are very much familiar what is an interim dividend. An interim dividend is a dividend paid during the previous year. So recently also, for Companies Act purposes, we discussed about dividend. Colgate has declared a dividend of 16 rupees per share and this 16 rupees per share is declared on May 2020. So it is taxable for the previous year 2021. Previous year 2021. Very simple. So with respect to interim dividend, it is deemed to be income of the previous year in which it is accruing or arising or paid, and it is unconditionally made available to the shareholders. So normally once you declare an interim dividend, it will be paid during that year itself, and it is to be paid. Okay, interim dividend is normally paid during the previous year, so obviously it will be unconditionally available to shareholders during the previous year itself, because what is the purpose of declaring an interim dividend? To pay to the shareholder. So they will normally pay it off immediately and the money gets to the shareholder. This is how the whole procedure works with respect to taxability of dividend under the Income Tax Act, under the head income from other sources. Now dividend paid by an Indian company is always deemed to accrue or arise in India. So it's an Indian income, and The aforesaid rules are applicable even if dividend is declared by the company out of income which is not chargeable to tax. So income chargeable to tax or not chargeable to tax is not relevant. For example, I'm just giving an example. A company is actually operating and it is having agricultural income which is exempt from tax but is distributing dividend. So it is still taxable in the hands of the recipient, and a shareholder will not get any credit for the payment of any tax by the company on such a dividend. We discussed about dividend distribution tax and all that. So whatever the company pays as a tax on such dividend, the shareholder who receives the dividend will in no way get any credit for that. That is, he has to pay full tax on it. So this is the summary of provisions under the Income Tax Act regarding taxability of dividend. Very clear? Okay. Any doubts? You feel free to let me know. I'll be happy to clarify that. So the next one we are going to cover is about winning from lotteries, crossword puzzles, horse races and card games. We need to know how to compute it. Very simple rule here. Any income in the form of winning from lottery, card games, etc., 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 it's all fully taxable at a special rate of 30%. Remember this, it's fully taxable at a special rate of 30%. What does it mean? So I've got a lottery, I bought a lottery ticket and I won a prize of 10 lakh rupees on it, and the entire 10 lakh rupees is subject to tax at 30% irrespective of my other income. Now that's an important point. Normally what happens is the tax is levied on the basis of slab rates, what we call. So for example, as an individual up to 2,50,000 there is no tax, 2,50,000 to 5 lakhs 10% tax, 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs 20% tax, above 10 lakhs that. This is just an example I'm giving you. This is what we call slab rates. Now for an individual there is a slab rate at which tax is applicable. But when I receive income from lottery, let us say I don't have any other income. This year I won a lottery for 2 lakh rupees. Then it is fully taxable. The entire 2 lakh rupees is taxable at a flat rate of 30% plus education cess you have to pay. And similarly, if I win any card games or any puzzles or horse race or anything of this nature, because the ejusdem generis, what we call, I don't know whether I have discussed ejusdem generis. I have discussed probably at the time of discussing depreciation and all that. Anyhow, the nature of assets. So when we talk of card games, winning from lottery and all that, similar nature, whatever you may receive, then that is fully taxable at a special rate of 30%, flat rate. So what does it mean here? I'll tell you. Normally, under the TDS provisions, TDS tax reduction at source, any person who is going to pay you something towards winning a lottery, etc., he is supposed to deduct tax at source. He will deduct tax at source at 30% and he'll be paying you the balance on it. That means the taxability of your income in the form of winning from lottery, crossword puzzle, etc., is taken care by way of a tax deduction at source by the person who is making it. It's compulsory. Any person who is going to make you a payment. So let us say Kerala government is running a lottery. You have won a lottery of 10 lakh rupees, and Kerala government, when they give you 10 lakh rupees of lottery price, they'll deduct tax at 30%, they'll pay you only 7 lakhs. Now the important point here is what you receive is only 7 lakhs. So for our income tax purposes, we are going to understand here a concept of grossing up. The concept of grossing up is your income is taxable. See, I hope you remember gross total income. What is the gross total income? Gross total income is the sum total of income of all heads. Salary, we discussed a lot of provisions. We discussed about taxable allowances, non-taxable allowances, perquisites, and all that. So you add up all the income under the head salaries, you add up and you get some 10 lakh rupees. Then you have income from house property, after applying all the provisions, deducting interest, deducting all that, you get 3 lakh rupees. So add up all these incomes, you get some X amount, that is called gross total income. Now when you talk of winning from lottery, comes under the head income from other sources. Your winning from lottery should be added as 10 lakhs and not as 7 lakhs. 7 lakh is what you receive. But what is the taxable gross income? 10 lakhs. This concept is called grossing up. Mathematically, you can do it like 7 lakhs into 100 by 30, 70. Because 30% is the TDS. Let me repeat. If you want to understand it mathematically, what you receive 7 lakh represents 70%. Because 30% TDS has been deducted. Then you need to know what is 100%. So if 7 lakh is 70%, what is 7 lakh into 100 by 70? You will get your gross income for lottery or crossword puzzle, etc. That is the income to be added at the gross total income level. Then you will have deductions under section 80C to 80U. Then what you get is called net income. And from net income, you will apply the slab rates and arrive at the tax payable. When you arrive at the tax payable, let us say the overall income for you is X amount and overall tax payable is, let us say, 3 lakhs. overall tax payable. This 3 lakhs, you will deduct this TDS already deducted, because your tax obligation has already been met. Again, I'll repeat, earlier class I told you about an assessee pays tax to government in 3 forms. One is in the form of TDS, that is somebody deducts tax from that income itself. Second is advance tax. An assessee is supposed to pay advance tax to government periodically every quarter. He has during the previous year itself. Though income of a previous year is accessible to tax in the assessment year, but tax is payable in the previous year itself. So TDS is something which is deducted in the previous year. Advance tax is something you calculate and pay during the previous year, because you will come to the provisions of advance tax and all that little later. But advance tax is something which an assessee calculates and pays during the previous year. And before filing of return of income, you need to finally arrive at your overall tax payable, and after determining what is already paid as advance tax and what is already deducted as a TDS, the balance amount you have to pay as tax to the government, and that final tax what you pay is called a self-assessment tax. So advance tax, TDS, self-assessment tax. These are the 3 tax components an assessee will pay to the government. Okay, why I'm explaining this here is because normally for academic purposes, they'll tell you the income received after tax. So then you have to gross up that income and arrive at the gross income, and don't take up the net income. Are you clear? Very simple provision, nothing to complicate here. Just you need to gross up the income and add up that as gross total income. Then income in the form of interest on securities, 56 subsection 2 ID. Securities in the form of debentures in particular. So I am having some 10,000 debentures of a company. I am paid interest for that. So securities is basically covered under the Security Contract Regulation Act. There is an act called Securities Contract Regulation Act, which includes debentures, bonds, stock and all that. So that definition is including the term debenture. So let us, for practical understanding, this particular section is referred to interest on securities, means interest on debentures and bonds. Both are almost similar, debentures and bonds. And here again, it is taxable on the basis of accrual or receipt, whichever basis of accounting. You may maintain books of accounts on accrual basis or cash basis. According to the basis of accounting, it will be taxed. Now here again, the grossing up issue will come up. Why? Because whenever the interest paid on securities like debentures or bonds, etc., crosses a particular threshold limit, the company paying you interest on debentures, bonds, etc., they are under an obligation to deduct tax at source at the prescribed rate. Now we will be coming to this TDS a little later, because the TDS provisions are relating to on what type of income tax has to be deducted, and at what rate tax has to be deducted, and when tax has to be deducted. These are all the aspects. There is a threshold limit, what we call. Threshold limit is if the total interest exceeds a particular limit, then tax has to be deducted, otherwise not. For example, let us say if your interest on debenture is only 2,000 rupees in a year, then the company paying you interest on debenture may not deduct tax at source. However, if your interest on debenture is 5,000 or 10,000 rupees in a year, then the company will deduct tax at source. So that is what we call threshold limit. So the tax deduction at source will arise once the income crosses a particular threshold limit. Are you able to follow me? Okay, so coming to this interest on debentures, bonds, etc., it is normally payable every half year, let us say September and March. So it accrues during the previous year itself. So while you file your return of income, you need to take into consideration interest up to September half year and September to March the other half year. The total interest will be grossed up. If interest is paid to you after deduction of tax at source, you have to gross it up, add it in gross total income under the head income from other sources, and you have to pay tax on that. Very simple. While working out problems, again I'll tell you this. Now there is something called a bond washing transaction. A bond washing transaction under section 94 subsection 1. It's basically a transaction where you try to transfer your bonds or debentures to someone else just to transfer your income. It is also something like what we discussed in clubbing provisions, where you are trying to transfer the interest income for someone on the date of interest, and then you get back the bonds. So bond washing transaction is also there, where it will be taken into consideration to the transferor only. So that is like clubbing provisions, it will apply. Then 56 subsection 2 clause 2, income from machinery, plant or furniture let on hire. So it can so happen that you have a business, and in this business you have some machinery and plant or furniture which you have some spare capacity which you want to give it on rental to somebody. Then that comes under the head income from other sources. That may not go to business income, it can go to the income from other sources. So income from machinery, plant, furniture belonging to the assessee and let on hire is taxable as income from other sources if the same is not chargeable under the head income from profits and gains of. So what I mean to say here is, okay, you do it regularly, you have lot of machines, you give it as a spare capacity, you give it to somebody else, then that may go to income from business or profession because it is incidental to the business. Because you carry on a business, it is incidental to business, that may go to income from. So once it goes to business under the head income from business or profession, there is no chance it comes under the head called income from other sources. Otherwise, if you do one off, or let us say you have old machinery which already you close your business and all that, and you had some old machinery, you want to give it on rental or furniture, then all such income will go to income from other sources. Similarly, we discuss about composite rent. Whenever you're going to let out your house property along with facilities, etc., the portion of income relating to the facilities will go to other sources if you're able to identify that. And if there are many such buildings only, it may go to income from business or profession. But if it's only one or so, it go to others. So similarly, I said, I gave you an example about my landlord giving the coaching center with all the facilities, furniture, air conditioner, and all this infrastructure, and he's not segregating the income into house property income and other sources. The whole income will go to income from other sources. And if he's going to do this as a business, then it may go to business income. If he's got 10 houses like that, it may go to business income. Otherwise, he's got only one house and it's a composite rent. There's no split between the property rental and income from that other facilities. If there's no split, then the entire composite rent will go to income from other sources, which we already discussed in detail also. Okay, and then we have something to discuss in detail called income in the form of a gift. Though for practical purpose we call it as a gift, but here under the Income Tax Act they're talking about money or property received without consideration or for inadequate consideration. Money or property received. So I receive money or property from someone and without consideration, free, then it's a gift. Or for inadequate consideration, I receive a 1 lakh worth of gift for 1,000 rupees. Then there is still again a concept of gift involved. So instead of calling it as a gift, we are calling it as money received or property received without consideration or for inadequate consideration. This is going to get covered under section 56 subsection 2. And there is a detailed provision which you have to go through in one by one because we have the implication of tax on gift has to be properly understood with a lot of examples and all that. Quite a few things we have to discuss in that. Then we have other incomes which are covered under the head called income from other sources. So we will take that up in the next session. And not only that, we have also to discuss about what are the expenses that are allowed while computing income from other sources. As I said, any expenditure incurred, normally revenue in nature, any expenditure incurred, normally revenue in nature, for the purpose of earning income from other sources, that expenditure can be claimed as a reduction and your income will be arrived at after reducing such expenditure. Whatever is your income from other source, what we are discussing about different types of income under the head called income from other sources. Whatever may be your income under the head called income from other sources, any expenditure incurred for the purpose of earning such income under the head other sources is always allowable as a reduction. There should be a nexus or connect between the income and the expenditure. For earning this income, I am spending this. Then I am allowed to claim that expenditure for the purpose of arriving at the net income. Because when we talk of income from other sources, what is taxable is the after expenditure, whatever is your income is what is. So I told you, I am letting out a plant or machinery and I am getting 1 lakh rupees and I spend 10,000 to maintain it. I can deduct the 10,000 rupees. So what is taxable for me is only 90,000 rupees. This is a fundamental principle you need to know about taxability of income under the head called other sources. So we also have to discuss briefly about that. I'll cover it in the next section. So this is a fairly easy topic, very few things to understand here, but an important topic, easy area to score marks also, and so I'm sure you'll be able to understand it easily and score better marks in this topic on income from other sources. So after a few things what we cover under income from other sources, let us see how it progresses and accordingly plan for the other topics to be covered. Okay, my dear students, I hope all of you are having some time to go through all my videos and see, because it's very critical at this point of time that we don't have a backlog, and I am trying hard to put up videos on a regular basis and also giving you assignments and all that. So I need your cooperation in that. So kindly ensure you are also catching up with my videos. Don't keep a backlog. Okay, just it's a half an hour video or 40 minutes video. Put onto your earphones and just sit in a corner and just hear out. Make it as a daily routine. Make it as a daily routine. Okay, so don't forget that. Don't miss it. Once you hear it at least once on a daily basis as we put the video, then your job is done. Then you can go for a repeated seeing of that video for revision purposes, but don't miss the first time, because a lot of things are getting covered through these video classes, and as I said, don't accumulate it because it will be difficult to handle at a later point of time. Kindly go through this on a regular basis. Okay, I'll catch up with you again in the next session very soon. Take care. Bye.